Welcome to Kinship Cafe. I am your host, Jim Jones, and today I am joined with Lillian Lefranc.
Hi, Jim.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me here today.
Hey, thanks for coming on the show. And we're going to talk about your attempts to bring together art and career.
Yeah,
So,
wonderful.
Yeah, excited about that. Just before, would you like to start us off with a song?
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be awesome.
Great.
Cool.
I see those bags under your eyes, and I can tell that you've been crying. You play it cool, but you're not that tough. And in the meantime, I'm here dying. Well, haunted are the hallways of my mind, dark and deep and ever long. Who's to say that we are wrong? Who's to say that we are right? Every now and then I see the light. My view is clear, there is no question. My glass is full, what a delight. My grass is green and we're all high. Oh, haunted are the hallways of my mind, dark and deep and ever long. Who's to say that we are wrong? Or who's to say that we are right? Are you alright? Are you alright? Are you alright? Are you okay? If there is something that I need to say, then I will tell you, so don't be shy. 'Cause of these words will come no glory. So speak your mind, no, don't be shy. Oh, haunted are the hallways of my mind, dark and deep and ever long. Who's to say that we are wrong? Or who's to say that we are right? Are you alright? Are you alright? Are you alright? Are you okay? Are you alright? Are you okay? Are you alright? Are you okay? I'm not alright. I'm not okay. I'm not alright. I'm not okay. Haunted are the hallways of my mind, dark and deep and ever long.
Lillian, that was fantastic. What was that song called?
That song is called All Right.
All Right. And
Yeah.
is this an original?
It is an original.
And anything you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, this song signifies a lot of growth and healing for me. It came at a place where myself and maybe others around me were kind of in a low. And in order to feel better, I wrote the song. And since then, it has not only made me feel better, but a lot of beautiful people around me as well.
Nice.
Who perhaps find, some sort of relation, if you will. They see themselves somewhere in the song. And with that in mind, that's what I was hoping for in general with writing music. So
Yeah.
it's definitely one of my favorites to play.
Well, great. Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, thanks.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about, we know obviously with the art, well, I shouldn't say obviously, I'm assuming because you're singing for us that the art that you're wanting to use with your career is music.
Yeah, definitely,
Okay.
absolutely.
And so what have you been doing on the career side then?
So, career side, I've been keeping up with the cannabis industry.
Okay.
I have been working in the medical cannabis industry probably since 2014.
Okay.
Keeping up with the information and knowledge that shows up between different researchers, and as much understanding as I can get, as much product information that I can get. Basically a place where if somebody's never tried it before, they can come to me and I can help them understand from A to Z what they'd like to do to move forward for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when things have been kind of on the illegal for so long, there's a lot of misinformation, and so there's probably a lot of re-education, I imagine.
Exactly. It's number one thing you like to say is this isn't the weed that your grandma smoked, or that back in the 60s and 70s and such. It's definitely evolved. The availability has evolved, and the way that you can use it to your benefit has also evolved. And so there's different methods and different things that you can do to help internally, externally, overall emotion, if you will, with the right intention and understanding, and maybe a journal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, it is legal now.
Yes.
So, do you mind diving into some of this?
I don't mind. Yeah. I love it. I mean, for me, it's definitely a passion. I personally, my experience with it happened to be around the time 2013, 2014. It was introduced to me from a perspective of wellness. I struggle with depression, anxiety, that sort of thing. And back then I had a lot of issues with feeling overweight and outside of my body. And I found certain strains and certain activities that I could do, along with proper diet and exercise, that helped me lose weight. And I did it pretty quickly, and I was able to really set intention with my consumption, and it changed my life. It brought maybe a new conversation, more understanding, and healing than I could have even anticipated.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting because when you think about pot, you think about munchies.
It's
but
true.
You're saying that this actually helped to do to
Weight loss.
control how you were eating, or?
I wouldn't say it helped control. It's almost like instead it gave me the conversation that I wasn't having with myself before, during, after a meal. It's almost like the plant itself is not magic. It requires a lot of work within oneself with the plant and our intentions, and then you can make it kind of work in your favor. So yes, you're going to get the munchies, right? What I like to tell people is, why not surround yourself with the snacks that you're absolutely allowed to eat, and maybe find a diet that allows you to snack as frequently as you want, because it's all good stuff.
Gotcha.
And when you're in that state of mind, truthfully, everything tastes better.
Well, this is what I was wondering too, is are you saying then that what was the key in terms of having the conversation with yourself was that it opened up more openness with yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
And understanding, like, I recognized one day I'm depressed. I'm feeling depressed. I don't know how to move myself out of this state. And I began to question myself. Just a solo conversation, as if I was going to answer to like this at an interview situation. Okay, why are you depressed? Well, I don't feel like myself when I look in the mirror, or I don't feel like myself when I'm presenting myself. Okay, well, if you want to lose weight, then that sounds like what might help this image problem, if you're having an image problem. I had felt disassociative with my body. My body was one thing, and my image and all that was one thing, and what I felt on the inside was different. So I realized through that conversation that in order for me to feel less disassociation, I would require me spending time on my body, focusing on my health. And as I began to lose that weight, there's a place where when you're losing weight, you can get really into it, maybe even obsessive about health. And that's where I was able to observe that and be like, okay, I don't need to necessarily get super obsessed with this, but I did want to recognize that I wanted to lose weight. And then once I lost a fair amount of weight, I just continued my path in general. The rest of my life, I went back to whatever else I wanted to focus on. And I do still like to go for walks and go on hikes and do the different things then that I did, but I don't have to do them as frequently as I was doing, which was what I learned in retrospect, when you look back at something. And I feel like because I have that conversation while I'm under the influence of cannabis, I can continue that. I'm looking at myself from different areas. Okay, so I see this struggle over here. How can I look at it this way and help it move forward?
So does it carry over into other times when you're not under the influence, or do you have to be under the influence to kind of have this?
I don't have to be under the influence. I will choose to be under the influence when I'm setting an intention to access that space. So I'm ready to have this conversation. Maybe I'm entering a meditative state, or going into yoga or stretching, or something that's going to be deep breathing and self-thought and peaceful place.
Yeah.
And that's when, again, I'm going to say, okay, now I'll have this consumption. Thank you, consumption, for helping me get through this next, thing. This is what I'd like to work on. And then I have my moment, and then I go sit down and I take my time to myself. And I'm able to focus my attention on the project that I put myself at.
Yeah.
And I've been able to do that in different ways. And not everybody is necessarily high functioning, if you will. But my high functioning it works for me. And I think it's really important for people to realize their own method and their own path is going to be unique. And that's the only thing I always look at is, okay, this is where I'm at right now. In a week from now, I might look at this differently and feel this way. Yeah. I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of different ways people interact with cannabis, right?
It's true.
I mean, there's not a one reaction for everybody.
It's true.
What is your thoughts like when people come back with concerns about things like addiction with something like marijuana, or using it in such a way where you're trying to do self-improvement? How would you respond to that?
I think it's important for one to understand that addictive behavior, it can be kind of towards anything. I mean, I know people who are addicted to coffee, right? So it's not to say that these things aren't available, like that addiction isn't real. Addiction is very real, and people struggle with it. And cannabis, I think, can, depending on the person, be used to potentially help people with addiction. And there are people who could fall victim, if you will, to addiction to maybe what they feel when they use cannabis. I think that's possible. I think that everything is possible. There's no black or white when it comes to cannabis. It is its own journey, and it's individual to the person that's using it.
Right.
There are several things that I like to talk about when it comes to someone who is worried about that, or even just is coming into the path of it. I like to say, start small, work your way from a low point. Don't feel the need to go to it in like a super low time, unless it's something that you've already set intention and taught your soul and body and mind. This is something I'll go to feel better, not necessarily this is something I'm going to go to just to feel.
Or to escape.
Or to escape, yeah. Or to not feel, if you will,
Yeah.
because that can easily happen. So it's definitely a matter of trying to maintain a level of awareness, setting that intention with anticipation. Oh, I'm going to go to my licensed dispensary to purchase this beautiful flower or whatever the person's needs or wants are. And they get to say, I'm buying this for myself because I'd like this time to feel better when I need it. And then you sit down with it and you say, thank you, because it's just like anything else that you can take from the universe. I appreciate putting gratitude back into things.
Yes.
So when I think of it as like, thank you for your existence, I'd like to feel better, or I'd like to focus on, and you take your moment of consumption and you go from there. Maybe for somebody that might mean, I'd like to journal for a little while before I go do my task, or I'd like to sit here for X amount of time and like just breathe it out. And I think that by allowing yourself to create almost a ritual that's not codependent, but just a path, you can find that space without it becoming something that seems dire. Because by the time you've taken your 20 steps to get to that, you aren't needing it anymore. You've actually taken time to breathe and taken time to think about where you're feeling, and then to set your intention about where you're going. Yeah. That's my goal. So as a user and as somebody who teaches it, I like to keep these things clear as a path, just because that's what's helped me in my journey. As a musician, you can lose your focus. You can it can help calm you down if you struggle with anxiety. So that's where you want to find the tools that allow you to use it in a way that's beneficial and not detrimental.
Yeah. Well, I like how you've kind of created the ritual out of the process, right? Because that takes it into a whole different space as well. I think, like you said, with everything, we can become addicted to whatever, right? Especially if we are trying to escape something. And so the more we can focus on how do we become whole and healthy, then that's also going to help us be less prone to using things in addictive ways.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and it's been fascinating recently seeing how much psychedelics, all the way, from thinking about, marijuana to, LSD or, psilocybin, ayahuasca, all that stuff, in more therapeutic terms.
Yes.
That's kind of like the taboo of talking about these things. Now that it's been lifted, our science has to catch up because it's been banned from even research, unfortunately.
Yep.
But wow, what interesting new vistas that have been opening up.
It's true. I find it fascinating as well. I've admired it from afar and through my experiences as well, just having kind of, again, set that intention, knowing that this plant has a path for me, or can help my path, if you will. I can take that time that I dedicate to it or to who I teach and know that it's going to kind of go in this like circle where it's going to go to someone else and it's going to go to someone else. And hopefully the person that needs it most is getting the right information that's needed.
Yeah. Well, good. So how have you been using this education? Have you been working at dispensaries, or how do you incorporate this?
I started by working at dispensaries. I have worked as a patient consultant. I worked as a bud tender. I've done almost all the line. I've helped open a dispensary. I know kind of a little bit about everything, a jack of all trades, if you will. But it's fascinating, and it's constantly being updated. So it's the most intriguing industry that I can kind of follow. And when it comes to helping someone else's path, it's very important to stay up to date with as much information that's out there. I like to find all the weird little articles, even if it's like, oh, I can tell that's fake, or I can tell this person took that from that article.
Yeah.
But I can hone in on the information that's accurate, and I'm able to say, okay, this is how I would help someone else.
So, question. I know that there's been famous cases in the past with things, especially around CBD oil and children with seizures and that kind of thing. But apart from those really specific kind of medical situations, for somebody who's wanting to begin or experiment with how marijuana, cannabis could be incorporated into their life, what is your understanding in terms of like brain development of when it's safe for somebody to start that? I've heard things going from like 21 even up to 25 before the brain's fully formed. Is there issues with that as you understand it, or?
So it's interesting here because the way I have observed it and what I've understood is the adolescent brain, we don't know enough about how that response is going to go.
Okay.
So I personally wouldn't recommend it necessarily for someone who is within I'd say the age of 20, like you said, maybe even 23, right in that pocket. I didn't start till later in life. I didn't start in high school. I didn't at that time. I remember looking back thinking, I wish I had. So there's that, right? Is you may actually find that there are teenagers with mental health issues that could actually find resolution with this as a medicine. And it's a way better alternative than some of the pharmaceutical options that are out there.
Right.
So there is a realm of space for some people who may need it, who might be in a place that could actually be beneficial for them.
Gotcha.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be THC. As you talked about already, CBD is really important to know about. But more than anything is to understand full spectrum cannabis medicine. So you have the cannabis plant and you have the hemp plant, and they're two different plants.
Yes.
And the hemp-derived CBD is its own thing compared to what cannabis-derived CBD does.
Okay.
Most people don't know that. Most people think it's one and the same, or it can be used, to different, like the same, interchangeably is the word I'm looking for.
So I'm very curious to know what that is, but just in case anybody isn't yet aware of what CBD is, maybe we should explain that.
Yeah. So the plants, cannabis and hemp, have different molecules within their structure. One of the things that makes up their molecules is cannabinoids. Cannabinoids are THC, CBD, CBG, CBN. There's a variety. There could be up to hundreds that we don't even know about yet that exist within the plant. Now, the way this plant works, especially cannabis versus hemp, actually still with hemp, but more so, if you will, with cannabis, it's a symbiotic relationship between those cannabinoids and their terpenes and the molecular structure that's in the plant.
Okay.
So this plant works best with itself as itself. This plant also, but this plant doesn't have everything that this plant does.
And you're talking about marijuana
Cannabis versus hemp. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So cannabis is a different structure and body and chemistry and smell and everything. All of those things are slightly different than what would be the hemp plant. And not to say that the hemp plant doesn't have its own strength, but it's a separate type of medicine, if you will. And I personally have found a lot more fulfillment and positive experiences have come from using the whole plant, cannabis plant, as medicine. So if you're talking CBD, getting a CBD tincture that is derived from cannabis and may even have, though minimal, THC present.
Okay.
So that way, what it does is the THC essentially activates the CBD, like they work with each other.
Gotcha.
It's a relationship.
Okay.
Whereas a hemp plant, it does its own thing, it's got its own stuff, but you're taking maybe double, triple the amount of medicine
To try and get the same
to
effect.
try to get this, or not even,
Okay.
to get an effect that's similar.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so then the CBD, because it's as a specific tincture, has minimal THC, it doesn't really have the effect of getting high.
Exactly.
But why are people interested in the CBD part?
Most people come to CBD for pain management. That's the first thing I'll say. Anxiety. I've seen it actually to help sleep also. I've seen it to help people wake up. I think it can work in various ways. And the secret lies in understanding what you're using it for, what you need it for. And so if somebody is going pain management, that's what they're looking for. I talk about it two ways. I talk about it as a supplement, and I talk about it as something that you almost could use as at the onset, if you will. I recommend it more so as a supplement and then at the onset. So basically, within our body, we have what's called the endocannabinoid system. Mm-hmm. It is a system that not only receives the message of cannabis, takes that message, resurfaces it as its own cannabis message to the rest of the body, activates receivers and receptors in different places. Now, those messages can be as simple as I want to be healthy, if you will, like throughout your whole body. But in order to activate that, you need to actually be receiving the cannabis message. So if it's a CBD tincture, if you will, a cannabis-derived CBD tincture, you're dropping in the message little by little, a little bit every day, and it's building those receivers and receptors and the messages that it can send out. And when you do either consume cannabis or use a stronger CBD dose for your pain or for whatever it is that you're treating, it can alleviate in that moment stronger than if you were just to use it one time. Like a vitamin, if you will.
You have to kind of build it up in the system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If it could have been a vitamin deficient. Say if you were deficient in vitamin D, you start taking vitamin D, you notice other things start working better. It's the same concept, actually.
Right.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Wow. Lots of fun stuff.
So much information. As a musician, I've struggled with having anxiety. As I'm performing, while I'm on stage, after I get off stage, so many levels of anxiety. And cannabis has been something that I've had to find a way to work for me. I've done it where I did smoke too much and I forgot my lyrics on stage, and that's not a pleasant experience, and that was my mistake for having consumed too much before. Before I used cannabis, I would try to drink to help that feeling. Same problem. Even worse. I would get even more feelings than I meant to feel. So that's why I stopped drinking. And so, as you guys will hear, my next song is called Drinking Song. And that song was kind of the feelings of anxiety and hurt and resentment that I was getting from drinking
Yeah.
and going out and thinking about people I liked and thinking they were
Right.
making it worse than it needed to be.
Yeah.
Cannabis doesn't do that. I don't feel that way anymore. I believe it can be like that for other people too.
Yeah. Well, and for me, it's just, especially because there's so many different ways you can take in cannabis that are not going to be necessarily harmful, like with smoking, the plant itself can be
Right.
similar to smoking a cigarette in some respect.
For
You're not
yeah.
obviously smoking as much, but, how less damaging it is to your body than alcohol. It's
Way less. Yeah.
it's stunning that it's been, this thing that's been illegal for so long when alcohol isn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think they picked the wrong thing to put away. Because
Well-
alcohol, you're poisoning your body.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
I know. Well, it's, so much of this always comes back to politics or somebody who's trying to make some money.
Yep. Absolutely.
But before we go too much further, you brought up this song. I'd love to hear it. Would you like to perform it?
I would love to perform it.
All right.
Cool.
I've been drinking again, and I can't help the way it makes me feel. Each night I go to bed, and there's you I see, avoiding me. Oh, but please don't forget that I care and I do. You know I'm just a fool for you. And I need you tonight to whisper in my ear what I long to hear. 'Cause girl, you know when I've drank too much, and it shows. Oh, but please don't forget that I care and I do. You know I'm just a fool for you. Oh, but please don't forget that I care and I do. You know I'm just a fool for you. And I need you tonight to whisper in my ear what I long to hear. 'Cause girl, you know when I've drank too much, and it shows.
Wow. Another great song.
Thanks.
Really like that. So I'm curious, what are some of your influences with the music? Well, let me back up. This is another one that's original, correct?
Yes, this is an
Okay.
original tune.
Good, good. So what are some of your influences as you're writing these songs?
Let's see. Drinking song, as I mentioned already, was during a time when I accessed alcohol more frequently. Actually, I don't think I even smoked really at all. I mean, I didn't smoke with intention. I just would smoke randomly when someone maybe passed it to me at a party. It wasn't something I was focusing on. So Drinking Song came about because I kept feeling low after going out and drinking and trying to connect with people that I was maybe interested in or had feelings for. And because I'd been drinking, I didn't actually accomplish that at all. I was misunderstanding how I was meant to use it or not use anything. Essentially, I needed to be myself and try to focus on me. And if that person wasn't getting the message, then that wasn't my person. And yeah, that kind of happened naturally. And in general, I've really loved relating to music because of my feelings, right? Having an experience or a feeling or a line that comes through on the radio that I completely associate with. I'm just like, that is how I feel. Thank you for this song. Now I feel better. Or I feel like I'm not the only one.
Yeah, yeah.
Drinking song felt like that for me. Even if I was, because I don't drink anymore, I still feel like I can connect with an audience when they didn't even know they were looking for a connection with me, just because they may have felt that before, be it that they're a recovering alcoholic or not. Maybe it's a path that they want to look for, or maybe they just haven't heard the perspective that I had, and that was my goal, was to give this feeling.
I like it.
Yeah, I feel like there are singers that I've watched kind of do similar things on their own, or even just existed and are so relatable because of the songs and the way that they deliver them.
Yeah. So, speaking of other artists, what are some of the artists that have influenced your musical style?
As far as my musical style, I feel like it is a little different than what you might hear, especially modern day radio. I love Patsy Cline, Linda Ronstadt, Roy Orbison, the Beatles. A lot of these kind of old school conversations and songs that then had to do a lot more with relationships and love and monogamy, or is really cute. And now when I think of these songs, I'm like, wow, some of this stuff's pretty outdated, you know. But I love the sound, and I look at my music as an opportunity to reignite a similar sound with lyrics that have to do with what we're experiencing today.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
It's working.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked a fair amount about where you've been from the kind of the career side of things. How are you working at bringing in the artistic side into the career side?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I found cannabis as a way to help me improve as a performer, and as I've kind of grown on my own through music, I've kind of had put it aside, if you will. I was saying, okay, I'm going to focus on my career, and during that time, I'll keep my music aside, as I've already written my songs, and I already know what I want to do, and when I have the money and the space and all of that, I'll focus on my music. Then I focused on cannabis, only cannabis, and I left my music aside. And I felt flat, if you will, on the inside. I felt not whole. I was not being true to myself, and then at the end of my cannabis career, the project that I was working on, I had nothing necessarily personally to speak of from that project when it was over. So I looked at my music, and it was like, it felt like, well, if you'd have touched me that whole time, we might have done something, you know. Yeah. But I didn't allow myself to. And what I'm learning now is that in order for me to be successful with my cannabis career, I have to really take my musical career and my musicianship and artistry and hold hands and talk about the fact that I use cannabis as medicine, and love on the fact that all of these artists and musicians are coming out as users that use it medicinally for arthritis or for whatever different situation that they're experiencing. I get to relate with them on that and know that, you know, kind of coming out of the closet, if you will, as a user. I've never thought that so many people would, and that we can be on this path together. Now that it's legal, it feels like a new conversation. And since I'm already having these conversations in my work life, if somebody has a question within my world in the music life, I don't mind sharing the knowledge either. I feel like because it worked hand in hand for me, I can help them see how it can work for them in their life, be it an artistry of their own. What if they're a chef and their hands are in pain, you know, from the arthritis? Like, how can I help them figure out a path? I've had so many different people that I've talked to that I've helped them in different ways, that it's hard to hone in on one example, because there's so many ways cannabis can help people. And that's really the joy of it, is knowing hey, there's this thing and it's huge and everybody knows about it. And then there's me as a singer, and you may not know about me yet, but I'm going to sing you some songs about feelings and tell you about how cannabis helped me get there. I don't know necessarily the future of it. I haven't found what specifically is the bind besides myself, if you will, the little Alexis right in the middle. Because I have Alexis, the cannabis consultant, and then I have Lillian, the musician. And together I exist. And I know there are a lot of artists out there, and I think I like to take my time really in the community, be it the cannabis community, be it the musician community, and spending time there and connecting and relating, and then just finding ways to share that with someone else.
Yeah.
I like going to events and maybe performing. Like, that's been an opportunity I've had. I volunteered with this group of women called the Glowing Goddess Getaway. It's a retreat, a glamping retreat, all women identified, and we go there and smoke freely, if you will. It's all the consumption is covered, edible smoke or however you prefer, and there's typically like a pool and a jacuzzi and a masseuse, and there's snacks in the kitchen, and everything you want is done and covered for you. Along with that is this really sweet vibe that everybody offers to each other, like hugs and love and just like encouragement. I, through that experience, have come to really hug my musician side, where it had been kind of left on the wayside. And because of the women there and the times that I've performed voluntarily, I've experienced, wow, like this is actually like beautiful. Like what I'm doing, what I can share, and the way they kind of gave me that feedback, it really just brought this beautiful peace of mind, you know.
Nice.
It was nice. It was really nice. There was some healing that needed to happen. That's why I kind of maybe set it aside. And through years of volunteering with these women, I found kind of peace again. And that's where I feel like I'm coming out again as an artist. I'm here. I'm going to keep playing. I'm very, you know, happy and alive. And I want to make sure we hear the messages that aren't necessarily being shared.
Yeah.
You know.
I like it.
Cool. Thanks. I like it too.
Well, this has just been a fantastic conversation.
Yeah,
I really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
So before we go, would you like to do one more song for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I could do one more.
Great.
Cool.
Darling, oh please forgive me for the things I'm about to say. I'm so sorry for leading you this way, and for the things that I left to say. Well, I need you to go now, oh, and be on your own. On your own, away from me, oh, but please, no, don't forget to write, oh, late at night, oh, when you're all alone, yeah, think of me, oh, think of me, oh, darling, well, it's so cold out. And if you were by me tonight, well, I'd be just fine. But I asked you to go, dear. Oh, and yes, I regret it so. 'Cause I miss your smile when it's looking at me. Oh, but please, no, don't forget to write. Oh, late at night. All alone, yeah, think of me, oh, think of me, oh, darling, it's been like 3 years, and I called to see, oh, just how you've been, oh, and hey, how's your mom, Does she still think I'm weird? And hey, how's your dad? Does he still call me names? Well, you need to know, dear, that I regret nothing, 'cause we've grown into two different people. Oh, so please, no, don't forget to write. Oh, late at night. Oh, when you're all alone, yeah, think of me. Oh, think of me. Oh, darling.
All right, another excellent song. So
Thank you.
what would you like to tell us about this one?
This song is one of my older songs. It's called Darling. It's a sweet song that had to do with feelings. It's actually not just about one person. It's kind of a variety of people. The feelings kind of start with, I really want to break up with you. Then you have, I regret breaking up with you. And then you have, hey, it's been a few years. How you been? And I think that's something a lot of people can relate to. And as I mentioned earlier, relating to my audience is really important to me. But also, like, having feelings about different things, you know. The first piece, I remember thinking that very clearly towards whatever person. We need to break up. This is not working, and I think this can be better for us if we break up. And I know I'm rude, or I'm the rude person for having acknowledged it, perhaps. But then by the second one, like I said, I can't remember per se if it's the same person. I know it's. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's the same person. It is about the same person. Where I'm in a time of angst at that second verse, and I'm like, I miss you, and I don't know what I was thinking. You know, that feeling of like, and then by the third song, it's like, well, we haven't talked in 3 years, and actually, I'm good. You know, like, I'm totally fine. But I do care about you. Like, I care that you're doing well, and I know that we are doing well because we've taken the time to grow apart.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's a very beautiful evolutionary piece where you're just looking at it like, what perspective are you at today? I might have an audience member who's in phase 1, who's in phase 3, who's in phase 2, you know, and let them see where it connects, because I want them to feel better and that they're not alone.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'd love to have you back sometime in the future,
Oh, yeah.
because I'd like to see where this merger leads and where that's going to go, because I think there's going to be some great things in your future.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I would love to come back. That would be great.
All right. Thank you again.
My pleasure.
Be well, everyone.
Bye.